Greetings and welcome to Awareness with Vanessa. I'm Vanessa Klinger, and this week we're continuing Series 1, The Secret Architecture of the Simulation. Last week we explored why the simulation feels real, how belief, agreement, response, and reinforcement can begin working together until an experience feels like proof of what we already believe. But this week, we're moving one step backward. Because before something can become evidence, before we interpret it, before we react to it, we first have to notice it. And that raises a question. Out of everything competing for my awareness at any given moment, why did that get my attention? Did I consciously choose it? Or did something or someone successfully take it? And perhaps the bigger question is who or what is directing my attention? This week, we're exploring the architecture of attention, how focus is captured, redirected, and used as energy. And now I'll turn it over to Vincent and Natalia as they take us deeper into this week's conversation. Let's begin.
Thanks, Vanessa. And before we get into today's conversation, I think it's time we properly introduce ourselves. I'm Vincent.
And I'm Natalia. If you've been following this journey with us, welcome back. And if you're joining us for the first time, well, we're really glad you're here.
Yeah, definitely glad to have you. So to kick things off, if you are sitting there listening to us right now, I want you to imagine, just for a second, that you are sitting at a table in the middle of a packed, chaotic restaurant.
Oh, like one of those really loud, echoing places.
Exactly. One of those places where you can barely hear the person next to you. And if you were to somehow pause time right in that moment and just, catalog every single piece of data hitting your nervous system in that exact second, the volume would be absolutely staggering.
It's massive.
Right. I mean, there is the baseline of the music playing from the ceiling speakers. There's the high-pitched clinking of silverware scraping against ceramic plates. You have the low overlapping hum of maybe 40 different conversations happening simultaneously all around you.
Yeah, plus all the physical stuff.
Yes, the physical sensations, like the wooden chair against your back,
Yeah.
the temperature of the air blowing from the AC vent, the smell of roasted garlic from a tray passing by. We are talking about literally millions of bits of sensory information washing over you every single second.
And yet, if your brain actually tried to consciously process all of those millions of bits of data, you would be instantly paralyzed.
Oh, totally.
It would just be pure blinding static. So by sheer biological necessity, your brain acts as this ruthless filter. Out of all that noise, you are only ever consciously aware of a tiny, tiny fraction.
Right, like maybe just the story the person sitting across from you is telling.
Exactly. Everything else is just relegated to the background. So by its very nature, human attention is an act of extreme selection.
Extreme selection, I like that.
Yeah, because every single time your focus moves toward one specific signal, 1,000 other signals have to be actively ignored.
But the environment is always there.
Yeah.
Right? It's always waiting. Because think about what happens when you're deeply engrossed in that conversation, completely ignoring all the restaurant noise, and suddenly, from 50 feet away, across that loud dining room, somebody says your name.
Oh, your head snaps up immediately.
Instantly. It cuts through the noise instantly. You completely drop the conversation you were having. And the wild thing to me is the physical environment didn't change at all.
No, not one bit.
The music is at the exact same volume. The plates are still clinking. The baseline level of noise is identical to what it was a second ago. But one specific sound wave suddenly became highly significant to you.
Right?
And that mechanical shift in the brain brings us to the central premise of today's deep dive. It's a concept that completely reframes how we interact with the world. And it's this. Attention is not simply where you look. Attention is where you participate.
Yes, that is the core of it.
But wait, I actually need to stop you there for a second. I have to push back on that word participate.
Okay, go for it.
Because if I am collapsed on my couch after a really long day, swiping endlessly through short videos with glazed over eyes, or I'm just staring blankly at the wall while the evening news blares in the background.
Right, doing the zombie scroll.
Yeah, the zombie scroll. I certainly do not feel like I am participating in anything. I mean, I am the definition of passive right there. I'm practically a piece of furniture.
Yeah.
So how is simply looking at something an act of participation?
Well, I mean, it feels passive physically, right? Your body isn't moving. But neurologically, it is anything but passive.
Really?
Yeah. We are so conditioned to think of participation as an action, like, talking, building, moving around. But when you look at how the brain actually works, whatever repeatedly receives your attention starts receiving your cognitive resources.
Okay.
It receives your time. It forces your brain to interpret it, which then generates an emotional response, which in turn strengthens specific neural pathways.
Oh, wow. I see what you mean.
Right. So even if you are physically completely still, sustained attention acts as a form of energy allocation. By continuing to look at something, even passively, you are feeding it with your awareness. You're keeping it alive in your psychological experience.
Okay, so it's less like a passive camera lens, just, recording a scene, and more like a spotlight that actually provides the power to whatever it shines on.
That is a much more accurate way to look at it, yes. The act of looking is the act of engaging.
Okay, that makes sense.
Which leads us to a pretty fundamental psychological mechanism. Out of all the chaotic noise in the world, why does your brain select one specific signal to shine that light on over another?
Well, we know we hear our own name in a crowded room because our identity is deeply personally meaningful to us, right?
Exactly. But
Yeah.
human attention is also magnetically drawn to novelty, to uncertainty, to conflict, and probably most powerfully, it is captured by our existing beliefs.
Right, and this connects perfectly to the groundwork we laid back in week 10.
Yes, it does.
We were talking about how belief and reinforcement create reality, but we are taking one step further back today. Because before you can interpret an event as proof of your belief, you actually have to notice the event in the first place.
You have to select it.
Yes. Your attention acts as a scout for your beliefs. I think of it like it functions like a heat-seeking missile, and it's programmed by your subconscious to specifically seek out whatever you already believe is true about the world.
If we look at the psychology of confirmation bias, that missile analogy holds up perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah, think about it. If a person harbors a deep-seated belief that they are fundamentally unlikable, or, that they are constantly being rejected by society, their attention becomes hypersensitized to detect rejection.
They're scanning for it.
Exactly. So in a completely normal social interaction, they will completely bypass 10 clear signals of warmth and acceptance. They won't even register them. Instead, their attention will lock onto a micro-expression.
Oh, like a tiny little frown or something.
Right, maybe a friend's slight sigh or a delayed text message or someone just glancing at their watch.
Or take financial anxiety,
Yeah.
right? If you are terrified about money, your brain shifts into this continuous threat scanning mode.
Yeah.
Suddenly you don't even hear the music playing in the grocery store.
Nope, that's filtered out.
But you immediately notice that the price of eggs went up by 12 cents.
Yep.
You catch every fleeting mention of inflation on the radio. Those data points just hijack your entire awareness because your attention is out there scouting for the exact threat you believe is coming.
And this is how the cycle of reality reinforcement operates in real time.
How so? Walk me through that.
Okay, so the brain notices a signal, right? Attention hyperfocuses on it, providing it with energy. You then interpret that signal strictly through the lens of your pre-existing belief.
Right.
That interpretation triggers a very real physiological and emotional response. Your stomach drops, your chest tightens with anxiety, and because the physical emotion feels so undeniably real, your brain concludes, aha, my belief is a fact. And because the belief was just confirmed again, your attention becomes even more hypervigilant, ready to scout for the next threat. The loop just sustains itself.
It's a closed circuit. And if attention is the literal mechanism that dictates our experience of reality, it is profoundly valuable. I mean, it's priceless.
Oh, absolutely.
And because it is so valuable, there is a fierce, unrelenting competition to harvest it. And looking at the sources for today's conversation, they divide these competitors into two distinct battlegrounds, the external and the internal.
Right. So let's look at the external competitors first. These are the ones we interact with consciously every single day. We are talking about social media algorithms, 24-hour news cycles, the endless stream of push notifications, targeted advertising.
The stuff on our screens.
Exactly. They are engineered systems designed specifically to capture human focus. And they don't do it by appealing to our highest intellect. They do it by hijacking our oldest evolutionary wiring.
Right, relying heavily on urgency, outrage, intermittent reward, that kind of thing. But the internal competitors are equally aggressive. And honestly, I think they are much more insidious because they operate completely behind the scenes.
They absolutely are. Internal competitors for your attention include things like unresolved emotional patterns, chronic rumination, old memories of embarrassment or pain.
All those are the worst.
Right, or the deep-seated desire for control or the need for reassurance. These are forces inside your own psychology that are constantly demanding that you look at them. And it is vital to grasp this distinction here. Something does not have to be a conscious, malicious entity trying to manipulate you in order to successfully capture your attention.
That right there is a massive shift in perspective. Because when we suddenly snap out of a trance, like when you look up and realize you've been doom scrolling for an hour, or you realize you've been staring at a wall agonizing over an awkward conversation from 5 years ago.
Oh yeah, we've all been there.
Right. Our immediate instinct is to ask, who is doing this? We naturally look for a villain.
Yeah.
We assume there is some mastermind behind the curtain pulling our strings.
But the sources are very clear that asking who is directing my attention is frequently the wrong question entirely.
So what's the right question?
Well, making the distinction between who and what changes everything. Sometimes the more accurate question is, what is directing my attention?
What, not who?
Right. The algorithm on a video platform is not a person. It doesn't know you. It holds no personal grudge or ill will toward you.
Sure.
But it is a highly sophisticated what that has learned the exact mathematical pattern of stimuli that keeps you watching. Similarly, an old unconscious fear of abandonment from your childhood doesn't have a conscious agenda.
Right. It's not a guy in a control room.
Exactly. It isn't a who, but it knows exactly how to redirect your attention toward any slight shift in your partner's mood.
I have to admit, there is a profound sense of relief in that realization. It is genuinely comforting to know there isn't always a who out to get me. Like, it's not a conspiracy every single time I lose my focus.
Yeah, that takes the pressure off a bit.
It really does.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it is just a blind pattern, a mechanical what that simply figured out my psychological cheat codes.
It relieves the paranoia for sure, but it also places the responsibility squarely back in our court.
Ah, right, the catch.
Yeah, because if there's no mastermind to blame, we are forced to ask two very empowering but tough questions. What has learned how to get my attention? And if I didn't consciously decide where my attention just went, what did?
That's powerful. To really visualize how mechanical this is, I think we should look closely at the attention economy.
Yeah.
I mean, we use the phrase pay attention casually in everyday conversation all the time, but we use the word pay because attention literally operates as a currency.
It does. It has a quantifiable cost.
Exactly.
It is a finite, deeply limited human resource. When an app or an advertisement successfully keeps you looking, time is spent from your life. Cognitive bandwidth is drained, emotional energy is generated and expended.
Right.
Sustained attention grants that platform tangible psychological real estate in your mind.
And the algorithms powering these platforms are, frankly, the ultimate students of human evolutionary biology. Let's walk through how this actually works in practice. So, say you're swiping through a feed and you land on a video of two strangers having a screaming match in a parking lot.
They're very common.
Right. Your evolutionary negativity bias immediately kicks in. The human brain evolved to pay attention to conflict and danger because understanding threats kept our ancestors alive.
Exactly.
So you watch it a little longer than you would a cooking video. Maybe you replay it to catch what they yelled at each other. Maybe you feel a spike of indignation, so you open the comments to see who is defending them.
And the trap here lies in the metric the system uses. The algorithm does not care if that video made you feel miserable, anxious, or angry. Engagement does not equal enjoyment.
Say that again, because that's huge. Engagement does not equal enjoyment.
Right. From an evolutionary standpoint, fear holds attention. Outrage holds attention. The system simply registers the data point. This specific type of human conflict reliably produces sustained focus in this user. I will serve up more of this.
So day by day, your feed just becomes this masterfully curated museum of the worst human behavior that you personally couldn't look away from.
And if your daily intake is a constant stream of people behaving terribly, the psychological toll is inevitable.
Totally. Eventually, you put your phone down, look around, and genuinely conclude society is collapsing. People are fundamentally awful.
Which brings us to an incredibly confronting question.
What is it?
When you reach that conclusion, you really have to pause and ask yourself, am I actually observing reality? Or am I just observing the distortion that my previous attention trained a machine to keep showing me?
Wow. Am I observing reality or just the echo of what I couldn't stop looking at yesterday? That forces you to completely reevaluate your entire worldview.
It really does.
But, you know, as dangerous as external screens are, we are dealing with something even closer to home. We don't just carry algorithms in our pockets on our phones. We have an algorithm inside our own heads.
We do. Our internal conditioning operates on the exact same mechanical loop as a social media feed. Consider a very common scenario.
Okay.
You have a frustrating 10-minute argument with a coworker or a partner. It lasts exactly 10 minutes in the physical world. The words stop, you walk away, they walk away. The external event is completely over.
Oh, but the argument is far from over.
Right.
Because I am a world champion at winning arguments in the shower 3 days later.
We all are. We really all are. Because internally, you take that 10-minute event and you loop it for 3 solid hours. You reconstruct their tone of voice. You mentally kick yourself for what you should have said.
Oh yeah, the perfect comeback that arrives way too late.
Exactly. You choreograph entirely new imaginary confrontations for tomorrow so you can finally win. The actual physical event ended hours ago. But internally, your attention is actively participating in the experience.
And there's that central premise again. Attention is where you participate. It really is like our brain has its own internal For You page, and it's constantly autoplaying our greatest hits of anxiety, regret, and imaginary arguments.
And the biological cost of that participation is very real. By continuing to replay it, your attention isn't just quietly observing a memory, it is actively fueling a physiological state.
Yeah, let's frame this as when attention becomes fuel, because the physical feedback loops are where this gets really wild. Your body doesn't necessarily know the difference between a real threat and a perceived threat.
Right.
Let's say you're just sitting at your desk reading an email and you notice your heart is beating a little faster than normal. Maybe you just had too much cold brew on an empty stomach.
In a neutral state, you could simply notice the sensation, acknowledge it as caffeine, and let it pass.
Just move on.
Right. But if your attention is captured by it, you lock onto the rhythm. You start asking, why is my heart beating so fast? The moment you begin interrogating the sensation, your cognitive focus narrows.
Ah, I see.
You interpret the elevated heart rate as a potential sign of danger. Am I getting sick? Am I about to have a panic attack?
And the second your brain interprets that sensation as danger, it triggers the alarm system. Your anxiety spikes. And what is the biological response to anxiety? Your adrenal glands release adrenaline into your bloodstream, which mechanically forces your heart to beat even faster.
It creates a perfectly closed, self-sustaining loop. The initial physical sensation captured your attention. The attention led to a catastrophic interpretation.
Yeah.
The interpretation triggered an emotional fear response. The fear response released adrenaline, which created a much stronger physical sensation, which now demands even more of your attention.
Crazy how that cascades. The crucial takeaway for anyone listening to this is your attention did not create the original fast heartbeat. The caffeine did. But your attention provided the fuel that turned a minor sensation into a full-blown panic response.
That's a great way to put it.
It's like your attention didn't start the fire, but it walked over, poured gasoline on it, and provided the psychological real estate to keep it burning.
It is the perfect analogy. Sustained attention and interpretation are the gasoline. So the natural question is, how do we stop pouring gas on the wrong fires?
Right. If attention is this automatic and this powerful, how do we actually break the loop? The sources point toward a very specific intervention here, which is learning to recognize the distinct difference between attention capture and conscious choice.
The most glaring red flag that your attention has been captured, rather than freely given, is the feeling of automaticity.
Automaticity.
Yes, it is that strange, jarring sensation of waking up in the middle of a behavior. You have to learn to pause and ask, did I consciously decide to pick up my phone and open this app, or did my thumb just reach for it on autopilot?
Right. Or did I pull up a chair and decide to worry about tomorrow's presentation for 20 minutes? Or did I suddenly snap back to reality and realize I had already been spiraling for 20 minutes?
Waking up in the middle of a behavior is a great way to describe it. But the moment we wake up and realize our attention has been hijacked, our default reaction is almost always harsh self-judgment.
Oh, absolutely. We get frustrated. We internally berate ourselves. We say things like, I have the attention span of a goldfish. I'm so easily distracted.
But the judgment itself is a trap. Getting mad at yourself for being distracted is just another form of participating in the distraction.
That's sneaky.
Very. The goal of this architecture isn't to shame yourself into focusing. The goal is simply to notice the capture, to observe it and say, oh, how interesting, something just hooked my attention. That tiny, non-judgmental moment of noticing is the key.
It creates a wedge of space between the automatic biological reaction and your conscious choice.
Exactly. Which brings us to the concept of the observer.
Right. For anyone who might not be familiar with that term, the observer is essentially your capacity for metacognition. It's your ability to step back and neutrally watch your own mind operate without getting tangled up in the thoughts themselves. And the practical intervention here is vital because the sources explicitly state what not to do.
Yes, do not try to violently suppress the unwanted thoughts. You cannot just scream at your brain, stop thinking about the argument.
Psychological suppression is a well-documented losing battle. I mean, if I demand that you absolutely do not think about a bright pink elephant sitting in the room with us.
I am immediately picturing a pink elephant.
Right. You can't help it.
Suppression guarantees participation. Instead, the intervention is observation before redirection. The observer does not immediately fight whatever captured the attention. It acts as an investigator.
An investigator, I like that.
Instead of demanding, "I need to stop checking my email," the observer calmly notes, "I see that my attention keeps returning to my inbox. Something about this uncertainty is continuously pulling me back."
Or instead of agonizing, why can't I stop worrying about money, the observer takes a step back and asks, what is my attention actually searching for right now?
What is my attention searching for? That is the ultimate diagnostic question. Is your attention endlessly refreshing a feed because it is searching for validation? Is it replaying an old argument because it is searching for a feeling of control? Is it scanning the news because it is searching for evidence to justify a fear you already hold? Because when you begin to track the repeated mechanical patterns of where your focus goes, those patterns will reveal the underlying beliefs and desires that are quietly running the show.
Wow. And if the aim here is to reclaim our conscious attention, we have to set realistic expectations. The goal is not to rewire yourself into some flawless Zen monk with absolute unbreakable control over every passing thought.
Perfection is a myth. The goal is simply awareness. Before you aggressively try to redirect your focus, you allow yourself the space to observe where it naturally defaults. It is about equipping yourself with a specific set of questions to carry through your daily life.
Let's actually lay those questions out clearly because they are the practical toolkit for everything we've discussed today. When you find yourself lost in a thought or staring at a screen, pause and ask yourself, what captured my attention?
Why did it capture me?
Did I consciously choose to give it my attention in the first place?
Who or what is directing my attention right now?
What system or pattern has learned how to get my attention?
And crucially, what am I feeding by continuing to look?
One of the most liberating insights in this entire deep dive is the realization that sometimes when you ask, who is directing my attention right now? The most honest answer you can give is, I am not.
Yes. And admitting that is not a failure of discipline. Recognizing I am not directing my focus right now is a massive victory of awareness. The moment you recognize the capture, you have already stepped back into the seat of the observer.
It completely dismantles the modern obsession with distraction. The architecture of attention isn't about productivity hacks. It's not about blocking every website so you can grind out more work.
No, not at all.
It is about recognizing that your attention is the fundamental mechanism through which you participate in your own human experience.
It challenges us to look very closely at what we are rehearsing in the theater of our minds. What emotions are we reinforcing? What external narratives are we allowing to take up permanent residence in our inner world?
Exactly.
Because the exact moment you notice where your attention has been dragged, you are no longer unconscious. You have introduced awareness into the machine, and observation is the only thing that creates the possibility of choice.
Observation creates the possibility of choice. That really is the bedrock of everything we've unpacked today. And, for those of you listening who want to explore the mechanics of these ideas more deeply, Vanessa Klinger's books, as well as the Human Experience Universe, are available on Amazon. They provide a much wider lens on the underlying framework we are discussing here, and they are well worth your time.
And examining that framework leads us perfectly into where this journey goes next. Because once you have spent the time observing the traps, the external algorithms, the internal emotional loops, and exactly how your focus is harvested.
The direction of that focus has to change.
It does. So in week 12, we are making a major pivot to a topic called Home is Real.
Because after spending all this time looking at the artificial layers, the noise, and the walls that try to dictate our reality, the obvious question remains, what exists underneath all of it? If we actually manage to stop feeding the noise, what is left?
Finding home might just begin by finally noticing everything that continually tries to convince us to look somewhere else.
Until next time, I'm Vincent.
And I'm Natalia.
And this has been Awareness with Vanessa.
Question everything.
Observe more.
Live aware.